Okay, thank you, Brianna. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rebecca Copeland, and I'm currently a circuit court judge here on Oahu in the First Circuit. I'm also the co-chair of the Judiciary's Committee on Equality and Access to the Courts. On behalf of the committee, the Hawaii State Bar Association's Civic Education Committee, and the Judiciary History Center, thank you for joining us this afternoon for this, which is our third in our 2025 Equitable and Sustainable Speaker Series. Today, we are going to cover important topics related to victim and survivor services relative to the judicial system. If you've never heard of her, there is a Tony Award-winning playwright, artist, and activist named V. She changed her name to V to distance herself from the abuse she suffered as a child. V once said, "Give voice to what you know to be true, and do not be afraid of being disliked or exiled." I think that's the hard work of standing up for what you see. As we hear from our speakers today, please take their words and experiences with you as we all strive to continue our work in these difficult times, remembering to always give voice to what we know to be true. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Thank you, Judge Copeland. Aloha mai kako. Mahalo for joining us this afternoon. My name is Miyoko Pettit Toledo, and I'm an assistant professor of law at the University of Hawaii at Manoa, William S. Richardson School of Law. My research and scholarship explores reconciliation initiatives and reparations for historic injustices with an emphasis on the intersection of race and gender, including healing the unique sexual violence harms against women of color. My recent work focuses on healing persisting historic injustice harms across generations, or rather intergenerational healing. Whether termed reparative justice, restorative justice, or social healing through justice, my work on these topics aims to engage with victims, survivors, advocates, scholars, journalists, healers, government officials, community members, and those seeking to repair harms. In light of this background, I'm honored to serve as the moderator for this discussion with our esteemed panelists who are all doing incredible, life-changing work on the front lines. On behalf of the Judiciary History Center, we send our appreciation to Chief Justice Mark Rechtenwald, the Hawaii State Judiciary and Legislature, for supporting and providing a space for this conversation. The Equitable and Sustainable Future Speaker Series is presented in partnership by the Hawaii State Judiciary's Committee on Equality and Access to the Courts, the King Kamehameha V Judiciary History Center, and the Hawaii State Bar Association Civic Education Committee. We encourage our viewers to use Zoom's Q&A function at the bottom of your webinar screens to submit questions and comments for our panelists to answer during the last 10 minutes of the program. A friendly reminder that this discussion is being recorded and will be posted on the Judiciary History Center's YouTube channel. And now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce and welcome our distinguished guests and panelists. First, Melenani Waialai, attorney and executive director of Kale Oka Lahui. Ian Crabb, vice chair of the Hawaii Friends of Restorative Justice, and Angelina Mercado, executive director of the Hawaii State Coalition Against Domestic Violence. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon for this discussion and conversation. First, if you could please introduce yourselves and what services your organization provides to the community, as well as any personal advocacy efforts or your background for the topic today. And I'll start with Melenani.
Oh, mahalo nui. Aloha pumehana kākou, o Melenani Waialai ko inoa, noho au ma Waianai, o Ka'ala Ku'umauna, o Ku'upu'uku ka Hawaii, o Waianai, o Honaunau, Ku'uaina Kupuna. Warm greetings to everyone. My name is Melenani Waialai. I am from Waianai, where I am right now, situated, and Ka'ala is the name of my mountain, Ko'opu'u, the name of my waters. And my family ancestral lands are in Waianai as well as Honaunau. Those are the lands that I call upon today. I am the executive director of Kaleo Kalahui, and that's where I'm presenting on behalf of today. Also a practicing family law attorney in private practice. Kaleo Kalahui is a nonprofit that I was able to found as a survivor of domestic violence and family member of women who have experienced sexual violence. And so these causes are very dear to my heart and foundational to the work that I do through Kaleo Kalahui. And I guess the services that we provide are cultural and legal support services from a Hawaiian cultural context, and we aim to work from a Pu'uhonua foundation, and that is how I operate our programs.
Thank you so much, Mele. Ian, if you could go next and introduce yourself and what Hawaiʻi Friends for Restorative Justice do and any of your personal advocacy efforts or background that informs your work.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Ian Crabb. I'm serving as the Vice Chair for Hawaiʻi Friends of Restorative Justice. And I've been helping out for almost 20 years. And just to let you know that I grew up in Pearl City, went to college for a little while, and I've always been a licensed electrician in the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. And that's all I do. And I'll probably retire next year. But what we do, we bring people together. We bring the victim perpetrator, everything to bring them together to start the healing. And I've experienced that myself in my life. And it has been life-changing for me and my family forever. And I'd like to share what happened with me. Is that okay?
Please do, please do.
Okay, so I was incarcerated for drugs and went to prison. I don't know why I went to prison for that. And suffered there for 3 years. And with my family, I had really no contact with my family. And I grew up in Pearl City. We grew up with much love, and really cherished that. And when I went to prison for drugs, convictions, I was ready to come out. And I was in Waiaba prison with a place called Cashbox, which is a therapeutic community. Really effective, everyone. Therapeutic communities are really effective. And what helped me was we had many counselors, and one counselor, Sai Kalama, really took heed to me and he set this up to meet Lauren Walker of Hawaiʻi Friends of Restorative Justice in 2005, 6. And it was so life-changing for me because I miss my family, my son, and who went to JABSOM and works in biomed. He does that. Now he lives in Dubai, and I really miss him too. And at that time in my life, I was a candidate to, you're going to make it, and we think you're going to make it. A lot of people don't. And with Lauren Walker, I got recommended to have a Huikahi re-entry circle where she set up with Don Slayton, another lawyer, and Diane Stoll is so precious to me, everyone. It's, to this day, so precious. And they set everything up. I said, I'm afraid to talk to my family. I don't think they love me anymore. And now I'm coming out of prison. I'm 42 years old, ready to come out. What am I going to do? I know I'm going to be an electrician because I've always done that. But I need my family's love and support, who I miss so much. You know, everybody cries in prison, everybody, just to let you know that. A lot of heartache, a lot of good people in there. They just got abused and harmed when they were young because we know everybody's lifestyle. We know their life story. We were in Waiaba and then their history. And we had to write a biography about ourselves to start the healing. It's a really good program. It is a really good program, very effective. And so getting to my part where Lauren and the lawyers, Don and Mr. Kalama, and with the department, with Ted Sakai, Department of Safety, got to bring my family together. And I was so scared that they're not going to love me anymore. So at Waiaba prison, excuse me, the day I was at Waiaba prison, I had a re-entry circle. Huikahi re-entry circle, so powerful, like a whole pono. And we were in that for 4 or 5 hours. And then my family, Department of Safety, Ted Sakai was there. He was the warden at that time. And a couple of my friends, so they could witness what was going on. being back with my family because I miss my family. I harmed them. I harmed them by my behavior. And when Lauren set everything up, where the questions were asked and answered, and I was so afraid I got to kiss my brothers. I kissed my father, and it was really so powerful, everyone, life-changing. And when we did that, they set everything up where they asked my family questions and I answered, and come to find out, my family were saying nice things about my father, and my brothers were saying nice things about me, which made me feel like, wow, they're in my corner. I want to love them again and be back with them again. And no old man here crying in prison now, crying and loving. I got to hug my brothers. I have 3 of my brothers. I got to hug my father, and they got to say good points about me, and they didn't focus on the bad points. And I told them where I'm at. I'm done already. I love you folks. I need you folks. I need you folks in my life because I grew up in plenty love, and they came up there to see that and witness that and be there for 4 hours. I cried my heart out with so much thankfulness. Lauren Walker saved my life because I didn't desire to go out there, and I was ripe and ready already. I didn't desire to go and do things I were doing outside with my old Ian, the old behavior. And I had my counselor psychonomic Ian. They're waiting for the old Ian to come out. I'm done already. They're gonna feel that. So when I had that happen to me, it was so rejoiceful just to be my family. All of this stuff lifted off my shoulders for decades. It was hard to explain. And I'm convicted now. I'm in prison now. Went through the whole system. I'm ready to come out, ready to be my family, ready to serve any way I can the community. In this case, helping other people like myself, women, everybody to get that love, to start the healing with restorative justice. Very powerful. So that happened to me. And it's so precious in my life, everyone. I hope you feel something. And the next month, I got paroled on my father's birthday. And who picked me up? My father. It was so beautiful. And it was life-changing. So I was again working again. But I was around my mother and father, just serving to the end. And I did that. I took care of my dad and passed away with small cell lung cancer. And I took care of him all the way to the end with morphine under the tongue and everything, all the way to the end. Always kissing my father, loving him, and he's grabbing my hand while he's dying. And I also did it to my mother. I'm the caregiver. They call me the softest heart in my brothers. I have 5 brothers. And I was back to the end I was, and it was such a relief for my parents. I'm a parent too, but they were parents of 5 boys, and I could see all the things I've done, and I just asked for forgiveness, true forgiveness, where I could say, sorry, I love you folks so much. Please forgive me. Or I don't know what I'm gonna do when I get out. I might go back to drugs again, but with that restorative Huikani circle, it gave me the strength to not to do anything, just to do the good things and abounding in good works on the daily. And that has been my behavior and my lifestyle since then. So life-changing, this restorative justice that we do. And along with myself, I think I was the second one to do this. And it's so powerful. We've done over 100 over the last couple of decades already, where people are healthy and back to their families again, loving each other and holding each other. And a lot of them were our friends. And it was just so beautiful. I just can't explain how wonderful it is to have that in my life, where I could have that, where my family loved me and the healing started. And it has been there ever since. And it'll be there until I die forever. I'm so forever grateful for the system and what we have here. And if we can implement this we have some schooling in Emma, we're doing stuff like that. We're doing much stuff on our website you can visit. But that's what was so powerful to me, so humbling, and so the desire to do bad things and recidivism is gone already, because I had my family's help where I could heal and love each other again. To this day, we are like that. It's so precious to me. And I just wanted to share that with you folks and what we do. And we do many other things. That's what I wanted to share with them. I can always go back and see things and love all of you folks. And we do it with a lot of love, and the board members and their lawyers and a judge working with us. They're loving people, it's so loving and want the betterment of society. I'm learning so much from them and how much they love people. And for me, it was family and my loved ones around me who grew up with me. And in church also, they know Ian and back to Ian. And so happy and grateful today. I still do much work with them. And thank you so much. Thank you.
Mahalo, Ian, for sharing that powerful and touching personal story. I think I want to mahalo you for the courage to share all of that with us, and how impactful it has been on your life, but also mahalo you for turning around and creating these opportunities through your organization to allow others to do the same. So we will come back to you for other discussion points, but I want to turn now to Angelina. If you could please introduce yourself and what Hawaiʻi State Coalition Against Domestic Violence does, and any of your personal background or advocacy efforts as well that informs your work. Thank you.
Aloha, I'm Angie Mercado, the Executive Director of the Hawaiʻi State Coalition Against Domestic Violence. And we are an association of domestic violence programs throughout the state, and we represent 25 member programs. And we have been in Hawaii and formed in 1980, so 45 years and going, and proud to say that our role in the community is really to be the organization that is working in collaboration with our member programs, and those include organizations like Domestic Violence Action Center, PACT, CFS, Women Helping Women, YWCA on Kauai. And our role is to work with them around capacity building, address the needs of their organization, from improved service delivery to even how to work with their own staff who may be experiencing trauma, vicarious trauma. And we're also doing work like this, being on panels like this in collaboration and doing systems advocacy work and public policy and lobbying. And we're really here to be a thought partner with our community, and really about how do we bring healing and justice and create a safe community for everybody. And I think it's really important to note that what some of the tides that happening within our own organization is really looking at a holistic picture and making sure that nobody's thrown away out of our own community. And we know that this is exactly that type of conversation that's going to spark hopefully some more collaboration and ideas going forward. And honestly, I never knew that I'd be in this work. I'm myself, and I'm not a survivor. I have a degree in economics, and my degree in economics really stemmed from looking at people in my own community and seeing the economic hardships and the impact it had on how people live their lives and how they engaged with one another. And since it's been a while since I was in school, we weren't talking about gender-based violence. So that was such a huge component that was missing from the analysis. And I'm grateful to be doing this work now, because it's everywhere we look, everywhere we see. And honestly, only things in my family have come up and been revealed since I've been doing this work. So I'm grateful to be here and really standing for our entire state here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Angie. So my next question is, I think I'll start with Mele and then go to Angie, is how would you define a victim or survivor in the context of criminal justice? And at what stage might victims or survivors need services from these different types of organizations? And if they need services, what should they be aware of? So it's a multi-pronged question, but hopefully it speaks to some of the work that you're doing and the services you're providing.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm not the best at providing a direct definition. I think that's Angie's skill. When I've been working with her, she's the one that comes in with the definitions. But when I'm working with a survivor, in our organization, we're coming from a different context than I would say maybe a traditional service provider. And I'll give a little background to that, and then I'll pass it back to Angie for her definitions. we put a lot of thought into how we provide our services as a unique organization. And so we've been utilizing the term haumana or student. We work in cohorts, and this is just with our work. And this comes from discussions that we've had with survivors. Some of them are conflicted, or maybe they don't like the term because it still puts this victim mentality on their experience. I've had some of them be like, no, we're warriors. We went through this battle and we're still going through this battle. And the name of our pu'uhonua ko'ululehua, actually kept that idea in mind, with the word lehua also being a poetic reference for a warrior. But when we're working with haumana, we're coming from almost like a kumu haumana relationship. And the thought process behind that is that in Hawaiian context, that is also a special relationship. So my kumu, I know the kumu that he learned from, and so on. And so I will say that genealogy and recite that just as I would with my own family mo'opuauha or genealogy, because of that connection. And the thought behind that was to for that to guide the services that we do and the cultural context that we're coming from. An important aspect when working with survivors that I'll touch upon is power and control. And I think that it's really important to have screening to really determine if you're working with a survivor. When I invite a survivor into our pu'uhonua space, I meet with them first individually and do a consultation with them. The reason for that, after they do an initial intake form, is I'm wanting to protect our pu'uhonua space. My training, and I don't have the many years to be the status of my kumu, is in La'aulapa'au. And so when I mirror a lot of the work that I do from my kumu Kahurari Akau, and how he met with me and welcomed me into our halau, our school. And so I take that with me and how I meet with them and how I choose to invite someone into this space. And I consider as a part of this, their energy, where they're at in their healing. And we talk about what are their visions for their participation in our program? What do they want to participate in? Their individual classes, group classes, and whatnot. And I consider whether they are a survivor. Sometimes there might be a person who harms, trying to utilize survivor services as well. And that might bar a survivor from receiving those services because of a conflict of interest. And that's something that we as attorneys also have to consider in our work too. But Angie, you're the best with the definitions.
Thanks, Melly.
Thank you, Mele. Mele and I often work together, so it's always a joy to be on a panel with her and sharing in this discussion. I think Mele brought up a great point about self-identification, and that's really how we treat it as well. So technically speaking, in our statutes, there is a reference to victims, and it's not just for victims of domestic violence, but it's just it tends to be generally in terms of victims of crime. And so that's often where it is used. And, very a few times, technically, if I'm doing any kind of legislative work, I might use that term. But by and large, we at the coalition and in our community, we definitely use survivor because that is definitely a source of empowerment. And because we know that folks who have gone through these types of relationships, it's not just the relationship, it's often the shame and the stigma associated with it, with sharing that this is happening. The various aspects of victimization that does occur, whether it's coercive control, financial abuse, physical abuse, etc. And to be able to have the courage to say that you want to change that about your life and the lives of your children if you have them, it's no small feat. And that's why often survivors will self-select to be, to identify as survivors. And some of them, rightly so, they're still going through a lot. They're still going through a lot with our judicial and criminal justice system, may choose victims until they find the resolution that they are seeking.
Thank you so much. And thank you to you both for really identifying the complex, really intersectional identities of those that you're serving. And in particular, how they need to navigate these different spaces, whether it's through the criminal justice system and in our courts, where sometimes the law is defining them a particular way, even if they're not self-identifying as victims, but how the services that you're providing really open space for them to be empowered, to self-identify in whatever way, in multiple ways, in intersectional ways that help them heal, really. And so thank you for, although, you know, we as lawyers have to start with definitions, it's important to acknowledge that really this discussion is much more expansive when we're talking about healing and justice and pathways forward. And so one thing I think that you're both also touching upon that I wanted to kind of ask is, and also I think I'll start with Ian on this one, is how can these community organizations build trust, particularly with those, whether they're victims or survivors or perpetrators or those who are engaging in services, may be hesitant to seek help?
Hi, aloha. For myself and my friends who went through the circle, they had to come forward. And women also right now in prisons, they're coming forward they want to do something. They want to be healed. They want to get into that. And where we were at, being incarcerated, that's all we think about. Besides going through what we do, what we're going to do, was I a victim? I wasn't a victim. I was a victim of myself, harming my family and loved ones. A survivor, yeah, surviving, but I wanted to get out there and put all the cards on the table. I've done some shameful things, but I did that and I brought that out. And that's where the healing needs to be started by the individual coming forward. And it's sometimes just hard. But you know, we have good people like Lauren, and she's going to work with them. And especially the women in prison, many right now, as we had a board meeting yesterday. So much people are getting healed in there at the same time and doing wonderful things. So when they're ready to come out, they're pretty sturdy already. And we have things like a parole completion. We had a couple of weeks ago in CJ's office. Mark Rector was so sweet. Thank you so much, Mark, for doing that for us. And it's so precious that we make them feel so important, so loved. And there's a lot of power in that room when we have those kind of activities. But for us, we're helping people, life-changing experiences to help them come along, and you can do it kind of stuff. And it comes out like that. We'd like to work with Melly and Angelina, with everybody to come forth and check it out and help we work together to help people heal and bring it back again, get Pono again, we call it, get again. That's what I can say for that.
Thank you. Mele, you sort of touched on this earlier, but how do you help to create that sense of trust so that survivors feel comfortable coming forward for that initial consultation and perhaps being part of the Hu'uhonua?
The main word that's coming to my mind right now is care, and I'm thinking of malama and that care that sometimes we want to get being face to face with someone or from actual touch, especially when it's a survivor of physical harm. You know, they've been touched with violence and anger or aggression, and to offer just a caring heart, caring thoughts, caring words, even a caring touch, because our practitioners and doctors, we were very much so looking at the whole person and offering that too. And I think sometimes there's a separation of that in Western culture. Of course, we ask consent first, but that's the word that comes to mind to really build trust. People can tell when your efforts are genuine or if they are forced and you're just doing a job. And very much so when I refer to even our main teachers are our family members. My dad, he's a cook. And from a very young age, he always taught me that his food tasted good because he put aloha into it when he was making it. When he's picking his ingredients, even the la'au practitioner, from when we're picking our la'au, our plants, that is a thought behind it, that this could save someone's life. As Ian mentioned, the healing, the words, the thoughts, everything that was put into it saved his life. And that's how I intend to move every time and to act in my work. I definitely get tired, especially as a family law attorney. And so also being mindful of ourselves and what we can and cannot do. Maintaining open lines of communication with our survivors. Sometimes we might intend or really want to help with a bunch, but if things change or you're not able to, I think that's important as well. Many of our survivors are also, if they experience sexual or domestic harm, they could also be children who, they were children who experienced harm. I was a child in the child welfare services system as well. And so my own personal experiences and thoughts and also working with other children who even end up in our detention homes and whatnot, it's very important to them that when someone enters their life and they're telling them something, that they don't just disappear or not follow through with that. And it's okay to say that maybe I had the intent to do something, but I'm not able to do it. I think the biggest thing is acting with honesty and earnesty whenever you can.
Thank you so much. And Angie, as a kind of follow-up question in your role, how can legal professionals collaborate more effectively with community organizations and people like you to support victims, survivors, and those seeking paths forward for healing?
Thank you for that question. The thing that really comes to mind whenever, even as we were preparing for today, one of the things that I keep thinking about is the fact that we don't have enough legal services in the state. We don't have enough legal services for survivors who are trying to navigate the system. And often when somebody is navigating our legal system, they're doing it through the actually through the civil system. So they're either petitioning for protective orders, or they're going through a divorce proceeding, or they are actually also going through a custody proceeding. And those are, very intense proceedings that are very expensive, can be dragged out for a long period of time. And we really need to have more legal services available at all levels, for all income levels, for our survivors in our community. And I think, part of that is that those professionals are also grounded in understanding the dynamics of domestic violence and power and control themselves, so that we who are providing services and help aren't actually unintentionally engaging in those same power and control dynamics that those people have gone through in their own lives. And it's so easy for us to do that as helpers, right? Because we think we know, we see a pathway, a solution, and it's 5 different things, and it's why aren't you doing this? And so I think that's a really strong place to start.
Thank you so much. And as a quick follow-up to where you left off there, so how can attorneys and advocates, like all of you, ensure that survivors feel empowered in legal proceedings, whether it's civil or criminal, rather than feeling re-victimized or reharmed?
Yeah, I think the first place to start is really believing the person that you're working with, believing what they're telling you that they are experiencing, and especially when it's not just physical violence, especially when it is about the nuances of coercive control, when they're talking about being gaslit by their partner and their partner's family as well. And then really understanding that and helping them prepare for what these proceedings are going through and have a trauma-informed approach to it. And when I talk about trauma-informed approach, it is also about understanding the impact that trauma has on people and how they show up. Right. And we will show up when we are traumatized and going through a lot of stress, and often not our best selves, not our most rational selves, often not able to take yet another rejection of some sort, and understanding that when people have that like constant experience of that, it really pushes us to the limit. And then when you're working with somebody, it's being able to understand that and be able to work through that, or partner with somebody or through a service to be able to navigate that with someone, because you're trying to represent somebody and you're trying to make the best case for them, right? And okay, I'm not a lawyer yet. Hold on. Not a lawyer yet.
Yeah.
But all of you who are, and all the judges and attorneys who may be watching this, know that you want to get your client prepared to be the best representation of themselves, and really understanding what trauma looks like and how it's showing up for your client is so important. Even in understanding and asking really fundamental questions about what the abuse has been like. So if somebody, for instance, has been choked, or I'm going to call it what it is, strangulation, if somebody has experienced that, maybe they have a traumatic brain injury. Maybe that's something that is affecting their memory. And you're relying on them to have complete and consistent linear memory of facts and presentation of facts. So it's being able to like take that extra step and understand and take a deeper look of like what happened to you and how are you showing up and how do we connect that to better serve you in all aspects of this case.
Thanks so much, Angie. And Melly, I feel like you're ready to chime in and jump in and add your mana'o. So please go ahead.
I think Angie touched upon very important points. You're not an attorney, but you really hit some key points that I would have mentioned. And so when I'm prepping someone for a case, you know, especially when there's been severe physical, mental, emotional, whatever violence, I do take the time to sit down and just let them tell me everything. And I have to prepare myself for that as an attorney as well. So if you're rushing in people and you're with the mindset that you need to get to the next person, you need to bill or whatever, it might make it hard. Everyone has different skill levels to listen, to truly listen and let them like tell you everything. In an ideal world also, I usually try to do more than one meeting. So I can't think of a single person I haven't done more than one meeting with if it hasn't been possible, unless it's like in the next couple days. The reason for that is it takes time, like Angie is saying, to kind of share for whatever reason. Silencing, not being able to tell, memory. When we're in a traumatic event, speaking from a survivor who has been strangled, who has been chased down with a car, it's very hard to even speak your story. Initially, when I first started out, it's been over a decade that I've been sharing my story and in this field. So for me to sit here, it took a lot of self-work. And so when I'm working with a survivor who probably might just be understanding that they're in an abusive relationship or in the midst of it, personally and fortunately for them and myself, I have this lived experience and this understanding of what it takes. Then I also know as an attorney that I have a job to do in the legal field and to get that story told through a TRO process, through a process where they might be cross-examined, through a process that is quick and swift oftentimes. And so we do our best to prepare. And in Hawaiian culture, when we're learning an oli, a chant, repetition is also key. So I'm able to, in my practice and in our work through the nonprofit, I really find a lot of lessons in my culture that mean something to me that I take into my practice. And so we work on, being able to recite that story, not necessarily me coaching them. I have open-ended questions for them as they would get in court. So I give them that initial experience. We do a whole run through when I first meet and look at their TRO. And then we fine tune that and pull out, because as survivors, we're like living in that experience when we're telling our story. I can be very wordy. That's my thing, because I can go back to that moment. I can remember the sounds I heard, the things I smelt, things that happened, how I was harmed, but I might not remember other things, other details in my life. Like, how old were my children? Where were my children? And someone might think, why don't you know where your children were? Like when you're getting slammed around, why are you not cognizant of that as a mother? So we all react to violence differently. And so get to know your clients, get to know what their experience is, what are their triggers, what are their strengths, feed on those strengths, give positive reinforcement, just show care in any way that you can, or some maybe things that would piggyback off of what Angie said.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. And then this is kind of a good reminder, I think, that attorneys, legal professionals, while we are perhaps trained in law school to figure out what the facts are, apply it kind of scientifically to what the law is, and come out with some sort of legal conclusion, that our roles are really rooted in more multidisciplinary approaches. We have to be lifelong learners as attorneys, as well as, I think, not think of us as constrained, just as victims and survivors may feel constrained to those labels under the law, but not feel constrained as attorneys, but really perhaps think of ourselves as healers, or those who can aid in the healing process of more expansive approaches to practicing law. So thank you for that. We've been talking a lot about these terms: restorative justice, healing justice. And Ian, I want to start with you. Just kind of when we bring up the term restorative justice or healing, how would you define it, or how does what kind of thoughts or descriptions come to mind when you use those terms?
Okay, for me, and I still we still keep in contact with people who went to our Hawaiʻi circle. It's all about love. Like we're talking, being positive about caring. We take that real important, uh, real sacred. And the men and women we got harmed, we're right there with them, and they're bringing that out and trusting us. And regardless, we're gonna love them to pieces and make them feel so good that they feel so confident that they can start forgiving, or they can start receiving forgiveness. In my case, and especially the people who've been harmed real physically, mentally, all that ugly stuff. We bring that right there. We bring that shows so much love and care, and bring the best out of that person. So when they come across it, they don't have to worry about what am I going to do. We're doing it because we love you, and you're going to be a good person, not a good person, just be yourself who you are, and really giving them that confidence of care and love, where there's so much that it's so sacred, that so important that they feel that, and they're successful. To this day, when we speak, how you doing? And we can look at each other and smile. We're doing good today. I go, so happy for you. I still love you. And I'm not afraid to say that, because I grew up with a lot of that growing up, and really not ashamed of sharing my story. Because if it's going to help people, lawyers, I'm not a lawyer, but that about anything to do to help, that's where we come from. And it's life changing. All the people I've met who went through what I went through, it's so sacred in our heart and so precious that there's no turning back. You want to help other people after that. Like I'm helping people any way I can. Like I took today off because I want to be here and using great pleasure and joy to speak to important people like all of you folks out there, and just know and restore them, to restore what was lost and recover what was it with justice. Hey, I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. Please. That's what we get out of that, everyone. Please know that what we do. We help everybody, not only prisoners. We prefer helping them because we're coming out of prison. Some people don't have money when they leave prison. We give them money. They're left with nothing, when they come out. That's our system. That's our justice system. But we can always like to help people any way we can, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. And I just want to say your aloha is certainly, even though this is a modality of technology, it's coming through strong on this platform. So thank you.
And we're our board members, and you can look at our website, they have the same attitude, and it's real, because when we know each other, that's who we are. And that's why we're really going to miss CJ and what he has done for everyone. He comes and we give awards to people who come to row, and we make them feel so important, and they're so happy. They're not going to go back to the lifestyle anymore. All the horrible things they've been through. Thank you so much.
Angie, earlier you kind of mentioned how important it is to take a trauma-informed care or trauma-informed care approach. And so I want to turn our attention a little bit to kind of what can or how can the Hawaii's justice system better integrate these types of trauma-informed care approaches into court proceedings and legal services. Or perhaps another way of asking the question is sort of what gaps or misconceptions or challenges are you seeing in your work?
So we know that the judiciary is already working with the Office on Wellness and Resilience. So thank you for doing that. That's a great first step. And it is super important from a level of working with the staff, everybody in the courts, from, when you're going through security to the bailiffs, obviously judges and attorneys, everybody has a role in being trauma informed and understanding what people who are going through the court systems are experiencing, and as well themselves. Mela mentioned that earlier when she talks about quite a bit about, centering herself and being prepared to hear the stories from survivors. in the community, as we are working and helping, we also need to recognize our own traumas that may be triggered. And the vicarious trauma is so real, and we are certainly going through quite a bit of it in this state in the last several years. On the heels of COVID, we had the Maui fires, and that has been so devastating for so many people. And I think that's really one of the first places for us to start, is recognizing when we see it ourselves, because it'll come out, and it'll come out unintentionally. And sometimes you do need to remove yourself. Like, sometimes we really need to take a moment, and what kind of policies and procedures and structures can we put in place for the people who are working within the courts to address that for themselves? And I think, one of the really important things as well is, um, the calendars are intense. We know that, right? And part of our access to justice and our commitment in the state is making sure that our judiciary is running smoothly, that people are not waiting too long to have court cases being heard, et cetera. And yet, can we do a better job of listening and asking more inquisitive questions? I think we can.
Thank you so
I
much.
think, yeah.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. I didn't
No,
mean to cut you off.
I'd just say, I think we can, especially in the courtroom, and listening to survivors and really being patient with them.
Mhm. Kind of follow up to this question is, what funding or policy changes could have the greatest impact in the judiciary on improving victim services? So there are initiatives underway, but what more do you think is needed?
So one of the things that we have started to work with the judiciary on is actually access to childcare in the courts. And so that's something that is so important. We've seen it from everywhere, from the prosecutor's office, the judges themselves, survivors, and the advocates who are working with them. So if there's a way that we can actually find collaborations in the community, to, like, with the Department of Human Services, because they are the sort of holding place for access to childcare in the state, ways to collaborate with them so that survivors who may not, we already have a problem with accessible and affordable childcare in the state for people, but especially when you are a survivor, you may not know when your court hearing is. You may only find out with short notice. And if you are also relying on your partner's family for childcare, that may not be the best scenario to be working through. So definitely access to childcare. Definitely making sure that and then I know a lot of our courts continue to do this, but improving on this, making sure that those who cause harm and survivors are appropriately separated. I think that we can do a better job around security in the courts. There are many times when I've heard of either attorneys being stalked by those who are causing harm in their families, or the survivors themselves coming out of court, and suddenly, if you've ever been to the Kapolei courthouse, you know that that's a parking lot that's open, and then everybody sets off those who are with those who cause harm sets off their car alarms, and that's just another way to intimidate and instill fear. So we definitely need to do a better job of that in our state. And it's not just when you're in the courtroom. It starts from when you arrive in the parking lot, get to your car, go through in the halls, and then leaving as well. And those are
Yeah.
some of the things that I'm thinking about.
Thank you so much. I don't see any questions in the Q&A box, so I'm going to keep going with our conversation here. And a lot of times when we're having these conversations, the audience or attendees want to know, well, what can we do? Right? We identify there's these huge needs, there's these challenges, but what can we do? And often folks want a call to action. And so I kind of want to conclude today's discussion focusing on that. And so I'm going to start with you, Mele. How can individuals in our community support friends or family members or others who are survivors of crime or violence?
As a survivor, I've received that question often. And the first thing I used to always say was, to just be there, to show care. And I still believe in that. But another thing that I've, as I think more about this question and what people can do, and even in my own life journey, I think if you have a gift, a skill, a resource, you know, figuring out your role in it. It might not be everyone's role to be an attorney. We need a diverse and array of services. Different people require different supports. And so if it really is a cause that you want to give to in whatever way, whether you are a CASA or a GAL in a child welfare services case, offering the perspective, speaking for the child who mother or father may be experiencing violence, that's a role too, and a volunteer one with CASA, or you are showing up, being there to give someone a ride to court or to hold their hand as they complete these forms or help them fill out the forms. There are many ways that people can get involved, even helping someone move from their home, an abusive space. You got a truck, you got the manpower, whatever it may be, that's a way too. So figuring out your role in it and committing there.
Thank you so much. There are now a few things in the Q&A. The first is a thanks to Angie for your last response. And I think the question, because you kind of raised the Kapolei Family Courthouse, I'll ask you first, Angie, and then Mele, because you practice family law, I'll ask you to follow up. And the question is, do you think it would be helpful to move criminal domestic violence cases to the Kapolei Family Courthouse rather than have them in Honolulu District Court, particularly given the geographic distance for survivors on the west side, like Waianae, who might find it a bit easier to travel to Kapolei rather than come down to downtown Honolulu?
Great question. I don't know. I haven't thought about it, so I'd have to give that some thought. I think there are pros and cons to both of them. You know, if you are, some people only take civil action, and so Kapolei Family Court, where they can take all those civil actions in addition to protective orders, and having it centralized there might be more helpful to them. And then, you know, coming into town, being downtown doesn't have a lot of parking, and definitely not affordable parking. And so I know the parking is less expensive at Kapolei. You park at Costco. I didn't say that. You know, so I haven't really thought that much about it, but it'd be an interesting question that maybe we should survey some survivors and programs about.
Thanks so much. Mele, did you want to add anything?
My initial thought was, oh my gosh, it's already so busy there. Situation, we presently have like 2 parking pay stations, and like yesterday I was there for a case, and right before 9 o'clock, my hearing was at 9 o'clock, it got packed. We had a long line, so each individual stall doesn't have like a meter like before. We all have to wait in line, and if one person doesn't know how to use it, it gets so backed up. But beyond that, you know, deterrent, I'm more so thinking like it might be helpful because place and setting is really important. And that's something that I think of in the creation of the Pu'uhonua and wanting people to meet in Aina, to meeting these different spaces where they're not triggered or where they can be their best self. Because like Angie brought up, we're in our worst life situations sometimes and we're not showing up as our best self. How can we relax the situation? And I think the same goes with persons who harm or perpetrators. They too might have trauma. They too might have gone through things, or they're in a state of they need to defend themselves or their actions, and they likely know that they did something wrong. And so if they're in a space that they're more comfortable, like for me, I live in Waianae, and yes, the idea of going to town, even though I used to work on Bishop Street, now I'm just stressed out by it. I think of the one-way streets, the parking, even though I am familiar with this environment. And you know, speaking from a Kanaka perspective as well, with our connection to our Aina and our places that we're from, versus for me, this is my personal experience that town can even be a triggering space where there are actors that have done things that may not have sat right with my people. And so I just like offer that little thing that these are real life experiences that myself and people that I have spoke with, you know, go through. And so it might be a good possibility to consider that idea. I haven't thought about it as well, though.
Thank you so much. In our kind of remaining few minutes, I want to come back to the call for action. And Ian, I wanted to ask you, how can individuals in our community support friends or family who are survivors of crime or violence?
Oh, okay. So for domestic violence, oh, more for the women. If there is any risk of women or unequal power to the perpetrator, individual restorative justice processes are always possible to help. I just hope that in our community, more of this is more exposed, where people can learn from that young age, growing up, elementary schools, where it starts. And if they can do that, and that'll be real good. And we're always open for everybody, domestic violence, especially for women, especially unequal power. We're there for them, really, really there for them. Thank you.
Thank you. Angie, any last minute thoughts in terms of calls for action, in terms of either how individuals can support friends or family who are survivors, or how we can better advocate for survivor services and policies in Hawaii?
I'll take the first part, and I definitely have an answer for your second one. So, one of the things that we really have been thinking a lot about in the last several years is that we've really seen quite a few of domestic violence related murders and suicide deaths. And there are clearly signs that have been missed. And we want to make sure that people recognize what those are. And those are lethality indicators. And so, in addition to when somebody discloses to you, really believing what they're saying, but really understanding too that when somebody says that their partner has access to a firearm, or they've been threatened by a firearm or a weapon, or that their partner has suicidal ideation, that especially around suicidal ideation, it's not just about, my partner needs to get mental health. It's also that they are more likely to kill you because all bets are off and there's nothing to lose. And we've seen that already in our state, and indicators like that are really important for us to understand. And that's everybody. That's if you, your neighbor, your family. It's for judges to understand and see in protective orders. It's law enforcement when they're responding to a call. It's attorneys, it's social workers, it's advocates. And it's really about having that frank conversation about, hey, we really need to talk about this. And I understand that you may not be ready to leave right now, but know that these are dangerous situations. So how can we find a way to help you? And that can be as simple as, let's create a safety plan together. That way, you have choices, you have options. And honestly, quite frankly, we need to do more prevention work in this state. We need to do prevention work at all levels. And many of us have had experiences where we haven't seen the modeling of really healthy relationships. And I think that we need to double down on culture in this state. Native Hawaiian culture, it's so powerful and grounding and reconnecting for so many people who have felt a disconnection, can be healing and also preventative. Like those are strengths that we have in our community that we're not acting on. At Pacific Islander communities, we have so many Filipinos, and our Filipino and Native Hawaiian survivors are experiencing the most abuse in our state, and they're also they're the ethnicities that are showing up in our DV related fatalities. So we got to double down on culture. We have it, it's a strength. And we got to fund it. We have to fund it not through federal funds. We need to use our taxpayer dollars, general funds, for this work, because it's about the entire state, and it's about public health and safety, and healing and rejuvenation.
Mahalo so much to all of you for sharing your mana'o, your stories, and participating in this really important conversation. My hope is that we can take a lot of these pieces, the aloha, the culture, and all of the recommendations, and really try to implement them into action, both in our judiciary, but also in our communities. So thank you so much, and thank you for allowing me to pose these questions and moderate the discussion today. I'm going to pass it back to Judge Copeland for some closing remarks.
I just want to thank you all for everything that you shared today. All of your words have been so powerful and very heartfelt, and we do really appreciate you sharing this time with us. And we look forward to continuing to work with you all and continuing the conversations, and we will be back in touch with you on ways to do that. Thank you for everyone who attended today. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much.